Hey, welcome to the Vortex Garage, and today we're going to be working on our 2003 Mercury Marauder. We're going to be doing a complete brake service, and by that I mean not just pads, calipers, and rotors, but we're also going to replace the rubber lines. We're going to replace the parking brake assembly in the back if it needs it, and we're going to go ahead and replace the master cylinder as well and flush all the fluid. Now you might be wondering, why go through all the hassle of replacing a master cylinder? Is the master cylinder really bad? And well, the answer for that is if you have one of these cars or a Panther vehicle and you've been driving it and you feel that the brake pedal is a little spongy or maybe goes to the floor quite a bit more than you'd want, or say you're sitting at a light and you have your foot on the brake, you can kind of feel the pedal start to drift down slightly. These master cylinders seem to be known to develop very slight leaks in their seals. Not enough to cause a problem with stopping, but it can get worse over time, and it certainly doesn't feel right when you're using the car. So one thing that I've done on two of them so far, and we're going to do on this one today, is go ahead and replace the master cylinder and flush all the fluid out. And that actually has a very big impact on the brake feel. It really firms the pedal up in these vehicles to go ahead and swap into a new master cylinder. So here I am holding the master cylinder we're going to use, and certainly you always see me saying that I would rather use dealer parts, OEM parts, things like that. And in fact, I would much rather use a Motorcraft master cylinder, but I've actually found it very difficult to find the part number for the right master cylinder for these Marauders. There seems to be a problem in the parts catalog. Now when I got one for my town car with traction control, the one that came was perfect and it fit right off the bat. I worked on someone else's Marauder, a 2004, not too long ago, and I ordered a master cylinder from Ford. It had the part number with traction control, but a different one showed up. And the issue is you can't use that master cylinder because the lines are actually swapped on them. Now it's not necessarily reverse to back, but it seems that on those cars, they use different size fittings for the front and the rear fitting, and they're swapped from master cylinder to master cylinder. So if you don't have a traction control car, like an early build 300A Marauder, you should be able to go ahead and get the part from the dealer. But the one that I got, like I said, was wrong, and when I looked on this one, it was the same wrong part number. Now, this compounds because it actually goes into the aftermarket as well. If I go to rockauto.com and I search 2003 Marauder and I look for with traction control, this Raybestos part number, MC390702, doesn't show up. But what does show up is a few other brands, and those brands show up where this master cylinder is cross-referenced. So this master cylinder does cross-reference. This is the part that would fit my town car, and it will in fact work on this Marauder. Now, of course, I was a little worried. Does that mean the bore size is different? Could there be any differences? Blah, blah, blah. No, I've been able to cross-reference, like I said, multiple other part numbers that do show up for this car, but they're really cheapo brands I didn't want to go with. And the Raybestos one does work. So to clarify, some of the Ford parts houses may mismark what part numbers work for your VIN, and some will say one is discontinued. Now, if you're trying for a Ford or Motorcraft part, here's what I found. Part number 6W1Z-2140-AA is for the 2003 model year with traction control. Part number 6W1Z-2140-BA is for the 2003 model year without traction control. Now, for anyone that knows Ford part numbers, I can tell you that those last two digits are usually just iterations in the part. The center numbers, they match here. That's usually indicating the actual part number. So it's very strange to me that Ford did this, because I can tell you these two master cylinders are quite different. Anyway, in the aftermarket, I can also state that some parts houses will also only show one Raybestos master cylinder for the Marauder, but multiple for the town car. And most likely, again, that's because some of the parts houses think the Marauder didn't have traction control. And, well, yes, early 300As didn't, but the later 300Bs did. And, of course, the 2004s, to my recollection, all of those had traction control. So I was able to confirm the following part numbers for the 03 Marauder, and I do think these will work on the 04s with traction control as well. Just use the relevant number. So for cars with traction control, that'll be Raybestos MC390702. And for cars without traction control, that'll be Raybestos MC390693. All right, back to our video. Now, I actually didn't really want to go with this part, but I'm going to because A, like I said, it's so hard to find the OEM part. But when I did that 2004 Marauder, I had the wrong master cylinder sitting that I had received from the dealer, and I had the whole thing apart. You know, person wants to get on the road and go home, and I'm like, hey, I don't have a master cylinder. Well, it just so happened I had bought one of these Raybestos ones for my town car. I ended up buying a dealer part and didn't return it in time, so it was stuck in my parts bin, and I was going to sell it on eBay or something. But it turned out that I could go ahead and use it on this person's car. So we cross-referenced all the part numbers, became 100% confident that this part would fit, and put it on. And honestly, it's performed really well. The brake pedal's super firm. The car runs really great. They've put a lot of miles on it since then. And since this is a little more of a weekend car for me, I've sort of retired this one from daily driver duties many years ago. I'm confident I'm just gonna grab what I can, because I can't find the right master cylinder. Everything's out of stock. I can get this one and put it on and be happy. And if I want to change it out to a dealer part later, I can. But that's why I'm doing this. All right, we got the classic parts table going here. And as you can see, we're going to be replacing a lot. We've got basically everything that we need to do the job. We've got our master cylinder that we just talked about at length, and we're pretty happy with that. We've also got some parking brake shoes, which I kind of said I would only replace if they need it. They're going to have to look pretty darn perfect for me to not replace them, because while I got everything apart, this is like 15 bucks worth of brake shoes. Might as well go ahead and do it. You can also go ahead and pick up a hardware kit for that, just in case. You never know when you'll need that. Of course, we'll put all part numbers and links and everything in the description. I've consolidated all of my brake hoses to a single box here, just for storage, because I've been collecting parts as things are in stock. So got brake hoses that we'll do, so we'll replace all the rubber lines on that. And of course, we've got new front calipers, rear calipers, brake rotors, and brake pads. Now what I ended up going with here, and I'm not a salesman for this company. In fact, I'm going to rant a little bit about this company, but I still bought the parts from them because I'm happy enough yet frustrated enough to do both. So does that make sense? Probably not. So this is a PowerStop, I think it's a Z26 kit. Yep, Z26, low dust. And I've put this type of setup on several cars now, and I've actually been really happy with their performance as an OEM replacement. I don't know if these things brake better than OEM brakes. I can tell you they feel really good. And I've had a set on my town car that lasted 80,000 miles with no issues, no warped rotors. I've put them on a few other vehicles for folks. Remember the old Mountaineer that was in the shop? I know the person who owns that. They've put like another 70,000 miles on that thing since we did all the work, and the brakes are perfect on it. So these things, to me, hold up well. The only thing that you need to do is follow the break-in procedures on the box. If you do that, I've never had a problem with them. But on that 04 Marauder, I had some issues with the powder-coated calipers. And the main issue I had is that the powder coating was a little thick on the caliper anchor, or the slide mechanism. So basically where the pad would sit. And what essentially happened is the thickness of the pad, the width of the pad, plus the shims, the silencer shims, plus the powder coating, made it so that the pads actually wouldn't slide into the anchor and to the sliding caliper. And what I learned is what you might have to do on these is have a file and file down those slots. We'll show you when we do them, and get rid of some of the powder coating. And if you want, you can still coat it, but you're putting brake grease on there anyway. The other gripe that I had is on one of them, the threads to the bleeder screw was pretty jacked up. And I'm putting the bleeder screw in, and it just felt like it was cross-threading the whole time. You know, I ended up having to chase the threads. It did go in, but I would have preferred maybe a little more quality control on cleaning up those threads. Like I said, they perform very well. That car is performing well. The brakes feel great, and it's easy to order them. So here I am with them again. All right, other things you're gonna need. I got some brake fluid here, some .3, went with some synthetic. I got 3 quarts. I think you probably only need about 2, but we're gonna be doing a full flush, and I'd rather have extra on hand. So 3, and well, if I need more, I got 1 more up on the shelf back there. I'll tell you if I need more than 3. You also need one of these. I've got an older one that I've kind of chewed up over the years, so I picked up a fresh one. This is just a universal master cylinder bleed kit. We're going to use that with our master cylinder. We'll show you how to use that. And we got our motive power bleeder, which is just going to make life a little easier when we're doing our flushing, especially by ourselves. You don't have to pay someone off in beer or pizza or whatever to sit in the car for an hour pumping the brakes. And this will basically do it for you. So That's it. I better stop talking and get my butt to work because I've been putting this off because it's annoying and it ain't gonna fix itself. So let's do it. All right, so the first thing we're gonna do is bench bleed this new master cylinder. So let's go ahead and get it opened up. And we're gonna go ahead and put in our little bleeder kit here. So what we're gonna do is find the fittings that we need. That's it. All right, so I'll be able to tell you the fittings here. So give me just 1 second. So we're gonna go ahead and thread this in. Another blue one that isn't labeled. Now don't make these too tight, you don't want to break them off. And then you get 2 sections of hose. And what you're going to do is put the hose over those and run the hose into the reservoir. Okay, and you want these to go enough into the reservoir, which some of the reservoirs like this one, there's a float, and then there's no way to get the hose actually into the bucket. So when you put the brake fluid in, you're going to want to make sure basically the ends of these hoses are under brake fluid, because what we're going to do is we're going to push on the plunger and we're going to get all the air and prime the system. Okay, so we're going to take some brake fluid, fresh brand new brake fluid, and fill this thing up. Now have your brake fluid ready, and you're going to take a nice big screwdriver here and put it into the back of the piston. Try to show you a little bit of what we're dealing with here. Okay, but you're going to take your screwdriver, you're going to push it in here, and then you're literally going to push that in and out. As you can see, the fluid and air running through the line there. Now you're going to want to keep an eye on your fluid level. Like I said, you need the ends of those lines to not suck air. Here's where I would say building your own bleed kit with steel fittings is good. As you can see, the Dorman kit fittings leak slightly. Really annoying. We're just going to go ahead and do full stroke pushes on this thing. Top that off as we introduce more air into the system. Top it off. Some of these are easier because the hoses can sit deep into the reservoir, but on this one with that float and the way it's designed, we just do it this way. Now note that as you go along, if you see bits of air and you're using this Dorman kit like I was, well, you're probably seeing air creeping past the threads of the plastic fittings. It's yet another reason next time I'd choose another option such as making my own bleed lines. Now once you're happy with the priming of the master cylinder, we're going to do a few more pumps here. Once you're happy with it, go ahead and go back to the car and you can get the old one off, and this one can sit here ready to go on the car. All right, so we're going to try the old GoPro head mount here and see what happens. Look, these are nice. Sometimes these are quite rusty. All right, so what we're going to want to do is get a catch can for that. Catch all the juice that comes out. Got some rags to try to not make too much of a mess. Off our connector there, just a push pin on the back. Get that out of the way. All right. I'm really disorganized right now. I left my tools over there. that I'm going to need. Let's see, a 13. So it seems that a 13 appears to work. Okay, there's one line cracked. Now, hopefully you're like us and your car's not very rusty, which means this will turn without twisting the entire line. Sometimes the lines get frozen into the flare fittings, and that makes nobody happy. Okay, so we're gonna lose all of our fluid from the brake cylinder, master cylinder when we pull this off, but we just want to get them loose. I'm trying to do this without taking off my cold air kit here. So we're going to see. There's one. What we're going to try to do here is navigate through all this junk here, get on with our wobble. Look at that. Oh, whoa. There we go. Put this aside. Take that nut off. All right, now our master cylinder is ready to come off. So we're going to go ahead and take off these fittings. And it's going to start draining out. If you're smart, unlike me, you can go ahead and extract the fluid from the reservoir, but I'm not smart. It's not going to drain that much because it's not pushing. So really, we didn't have much loss at all. That's good. So we got a bracket here, needs to come down and off, and I think there's one in the back yet. So it's a double bracket for the wiring harness. Once that's out of the way, got both of your hoses off. Master cylinder just slides right out. Simple, easy. Now is where you want to grab one of these rags, put it around it so you don't get it on your paint. All right, now we're going to take our nice new primed one and get it lined up. Don't forget your wiring harness. Okay, and then we can start the bolts. Now one at a time, I'm going to go ahead and remove, and we'll twist out this fitting. Go ahead and put this fitting in. Now, when you do this, make sure you don't cross thread the flare fitting. It should thread in nice and easy like that one just did. All right. And then pop this one in. Like I was saying, on the other style master cylinder for these, if you don't have traction control, there's a little like bleed port right there. And I've noticed, as you can see, this is a smaller thread, this is a larger thread. That's reversed on the other one. So good to know that, because you don't want to get stuck by that. Let's go ahead and just tighten these down. Torque them in a bit. Okay. And we'll snug up our flare fittings. And I'll show you something pretty wild in a second. Now you might be wondering why we're doing this first. There's a method to the madness here. What I'm going to do is replace all the fluid. I don't want old dirty fluid from this car to touch any of our componentry. Now I could flush the old master cylinder out and flush all the fluid, but I'd waste a ton of fluid and have a bunch in the reservoir. So what I found is a good compromise is go ahead and swap out the master cylinder. We're going to use our power bleeder, so we're not pumping the brakes at all. We're not even going to touch the brake pedal. Everything we do from here out is going to be pushing fluid out of this system. So whatever is in the lines that might mingle in those little areas right there, well, it's not going to get sucked back into the reservoir because we're not pumping the brakes, and it's going to all be pushed out. And what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and take the wheels off. We're going to completely flush the brake system before we pull any calipers off and replace calipers. So that way the calipers themselves are going to only touch new fluid, the lines will touch new fluid, but this we can go ahead and get started and run that as a base. All right, well, let's take a look at our torque specs here. So our lines are 13 foot-pounds, so we can use our inch-pound torque wrench that I bought for $9.99 and really should get a better one. You saw me in a short using a gear wrench one I borrowed from somebody, and I felt much more comfortable using it. All right, so 155.6. Okay, so what we're going to use is the 13 flare fitting crow's foot. Okay, and what this is going to let us do is actually look at that, torque our lines. Who does that? Look at that, those flare fittings are torqued to factory spec. And you know, it didn't take that long to set this up. Those are now torqued to $9.99 worth of old Harbor Freight 1/4 inch torque wrench. Only the best. All right, so we're done. Our flare fittings are on. Now we just got to torque the mount bolts, and those go to 21 pound-feet. So we're going to go ahead and use this little guy. So this is like ultra precise. This is probably a $29.99 torque wrench from 10 years ago or 15 years ago. All right, that felt like more than 21, but don't snap those studs off, because then you're replacing your booster and climbing under your dash and hating yourself. You don't want to hate yourself. There we go. And look, I'll just check this one more time for you. There. So anyway, look at that. We didn't make too big of a mess. Spilled a little brake fluid down there. All right, so most of what we're going to be doing now is going to be with this thing. This is our brake bleeder. See, I got all my accessories in here, and well, we're going to be using this one. Because these never fit. This is a Ford one I actually used on a Ford before. Fit the F-250, but for some reason it doesn't fit the Panther cars. So we're going to use this one, which is, as you can tell, annoying. What you got to do here is put this little chain thing on it. It's a universal. And then you can not get this dirty. I'm going to keep that clean. But you fit this over there. And then, well, you gotta run these things through here. Not chew up your electrical connector. Run that under somewhere. Okay, get that tight and start tightening this one. Basically what we're doing is we're cinching this rubber piece down. And like I said, you gotta be careful that you're not breaking this clip off. All right, that should be good.
However, it wasn't good and would lead to a bunch of spilled brake fluid in the future. We'll show you that when we get to it, but suffice to say, these things are a real pain to get perfectly sealed.
All right, so now that's sealed on there. You go in there. I'm gonna fill this sucker up. All right, so basically we got this thing on here, and all we need to do now is, well, pressurize it. As you can see, when we do that, we start pumping brand new fresh fluid into our reservoir here. Thought I had that on there. Thought I had it on good. I wish I just had the one that fit. Leaking fluid out of it like a crazy person.
Eventually I got it sealed properly, but not after making a huge mess of brake fluid under the vehicle. It's going to look pretty bad in the videos, but don't worry, we cleaned it up and fortunately didn't have any damage to the car, paint or anything like that. The universal ones work great if you take the time to set them up correctly, but it's really nice when you can get the screw-on cap directly from Motive. I'll do my best to link in the comments one that I believe will work with the Panther cars. Once we have it properly fitted and tight, we can go ahead and move on.
So I've come to the conclusion that my trusty Motive power bleeder, the gauge is not functioning because I can feel pressure building in it. I've got that cinched down so there's nothing leaking, but the gauge still reads 0. Let me show you why. And so we're at the furthest wheel, and we're going to start draining some fluid here. Now, if we've got pressure in the system from our Motive bleeder, we should start to have stuff come out, which we do. Not a lot, but pretty good amount.
I was still dialing in hack cam here. That means some of the views aren't always going to be the best. We'll get better as we go on.
So look at our fluid situation right now. Okay, so we're going to let that drain. Well, it's not draining, it's flushing. We're just going to pump some more into our tank here. Look at how clean that is already. So the reason I knew that I had pressure in there is, A, I wasn't connecting the top part well enough and I was leaking a crap ton of fluid without realizing it because I'm a goof. But once I figured that out, got it tight, I was still not building pressure on the thing and I was pumping it up and nothing was happening. It's probably putting who knows how many PSI into the system. But hey, it's pretty clean. Oh, that's surprisingly clean. Look at that to that. So this is the junk we want to get out, and yeah, shame on me. I had not done my brake flushes in a while. All we're putting in this thing is fresh new fluid. Look at that. So that's pretty good. All right, now we're going to go to the other back wheel, and we're going to do the same. Behind here. I hope this works with the camera. I have no idea. But basically our theory here, by the way, is we're going to do the furthest back and then work ourselves closest to the master cylinder. So that would be the two rears. Pump it up. Keep an eye on your fluid level in here. We got plenty. And then basically let this thing run out for a bit. Keep taking your samples. And when you get a sample, you'd be proud to show everybody. Oh, we're getting there. Still got a little bit of funk in there. I said, when you get a sample, you'd be proud to show everybody. Go ahead and close up your bleeder. All right, Nice. Look at all this nasty old brake fluid we're getting out of here. Oh, geez. Oh, there we go. Look at that. Oh, look at that. Look at how gross that stuff is. So brake fluid's hygroscopic, which means it attracts moisture and just general condensation. And look at how it's already cleaned up a little bit, you can see there. But you see that nasty stuff in there? That's pretty much what all the brake fluid looked like in the system. And this contributes to your mushy pedal. So the hygroscopic does a couple things. Number one, water boils a lot sooner than brake fluid. So if you imagine when you're doing some spirited driving, or just driving in traffic in your metropolitan area, you're probably heating the brakes up a bit. And it doesn't take much, especially on a warm day or with some, like I said, spirited driving, to get to the point where you might boil the water in the brake fluid. Now when that happens, it turns into steam and gets air pockets and whatnot in it, and it basically doesn't compress, or it actually then compresses, because water is kind of like hydraulic fluid, you can't compress it. But when it turns into steam, all of a sudden you've changed a lot of things in the fluid, and not to mention all the other junk and garbage in here, which contributes to that spongy pedal. It basically means that you're pushing pedal on the hydraulic plunger, and it's not having the exact effect that it should have. With hydraulic fluid and water being non-compressible, you should essentially have a not one-to-one rate, but you should be attributing that a level of workforce to the amount of movement in your caliper pistons. Well, when there's that steam and water and air and whatever else gets into the system and that junky stuff, you start to lose that. That's where you get spongy pedals and reduced brake feel. So another important thing to know is how hydraulic systems work in general. Look at how clear that is. We're getting to a sample I'd love to show somebody. But the way hydraulic systems work is effectively it's almost like a lever, so to speak. So you're moving a short, I think it's like a big ram. There's pictures and stuff. But basically, by doing a small amount of work in a long fashion, you can do a immensely hard amount of work in a shorter fashion. So by pumping the brake pedal, why am I stopping this? I'm going to go pump up some more air. But effectively, by moving the piston in the brake master cylinder, which is fairly simple to do and even easier with the booster, you're able to move the pistons out with an immense amount of force in the calipers. So if you just had a mechanical connection, obviously you'd use a lever, but say you just took your hands or even your foot and you just tried to press the pistons against the brake rotor, you'd never be able to get the same amount of force that the hydraulic system can get. Oh yeah, I like that. All right, no need to waste it. All right, like I was saying, ignore the giant mess of brake fluid, because we're going to clean that up in a bit. That ought to get us to the home stretch. Look at the mess that I made. I poured that everywhere. You know what wouldn't have happened? That if I wasn't filming. Oh yeah. See, this one, like pretty much clean right away. I'll let it drain for a little bit, and then we can start blowing all this stuff apart. All right, so this worked really well. We've now flushed all of our brake fluid. So I'm going to go ahead and just take out the pressure. And we're going to leave this connected because I am going to wipe it down and clean it, but we're going to bleed the brakes later. All right, so we're ready to go ahead and pull off our brakes here in the front. And well, pretty simple to do that. What we are going to do is go ahead and get our hose pulled off. And well, there's two ways we can do that. Looks like we're going to want to take it off here, but eventually, look at that zip tie. What is that all about? So before we do anything, what I want to do is go ahead and take off our banjo bolt right here. So let's do that. And that's a 14 millimeter. Okay, so we'll go ahead and get that off. You're going to leak fluid, so get your drain pan under there. Okay, got our banjo bolt out, and you can take this, just like that. And then we can tuck this out of the way. As you can see, we've just cinched off our line with that little rubber stopper. Works really well. We're just going to put our line out of the way for right now, because we're going to go ahead and remove our caliper and our rotor. Now, since we're replacing everything, we don't really have to do anything too special here. What I will do is take my little pry bar here, and I'm going to come in, and I'm just going to squish the pistons in a little bit. Okay. Then we're going to take this, we're going to come along back and see if this will fit. And will it fit? It does amazingly. Now will it work? Oh my God, are you kidding me? This little thing just took out that caliper anchor bolt like it was nothing. But I don't think it's going to be able to fit into this one with the spring in the way. No, see, not quite. Now if I get my little universal here, let's see if that'll allow me to get on it. Yep. Woo, look at that. And this thing, that's your caliper is going to leak out. And you take your caliper and pads off, put them in your bucket, take your rotor off, and our rotor came off. We didn't have to hammer it off. That's amazing. I gotta admit, I'm pretty impressed with this tool. Those are 118 pound-feet in, but they usually just get cinched in from years, so pretty cool that that worked. All right, so before we do anything else, let's go ahead and replace our line. We're going to come in here to our flare fitting. Let's take our flare wrench. All right. Go ahead and I have no idea if you can see on any of these cameras. I'm probably blocking one and got my hat shoved in the fender on the other. I don't know how people do this without a camera crew. Wouldn't that be nice? A camera crew. It makes me feel really like I need a camera crew. No, you don't. You're just a goof fixing your car. Anyway, the only way you get a camera crew is if you make fake drama. I'd have to be fighting somebody. Oh, well, that ain't gonna help. There, that's better. I kicked that camera. All right, so anyway, okay, once we get that one off, should be able to take this one and do this. Yeah, look at that. All right, that sort of works. All right, so that'll kind of hold. And then we just need to get a wrench on there. All right, we're going to use the much less powerful Makita XWT12. This is a 3/8 impact, and we're going to put it on high power. Works good for stuff like that. All right, now we just got to go to our box and match up the right hose. Okay. I mean, it's supposed to go like that, I think. Right? Something like that. Now we can put this one on the new one. Like that. See? Got this one on the new one. So now we should be able to pop this one off. Get it in there. And then go ahead and line up. Our threads aren't lined up at all. So excuse me. I'm going to loosen this. There. This will give us room to line up our threads, get everything happy so they're not cross-threaded. There we go. All right, now if you're not replacing your hub unit assembly, which we aren't, now's a good time to come in and just clean it up a little bit. All right. Clean that, let it dry. All right, so if you saw how easy the brake rotor came off, it's because a long time ago, I put anti-seize on our hub mating surface. And don't gob it on too much. You don't want to be crazy. You don't want to gooping out, getting on the back of the brake rotor, and well, you don't want to anti-seize your brake pads. You kind of want those to grab. But you don't want the dissimilar metals here, or metals in general and corrosion, to cause your brake rotor to stick to your hub face. And yes, that can happen. And yes, really the only thing you can do to get them off is whack this sucker with a hammer. Bigger the hammer, the better sometimes. The worst I've had to do is the air hammer, and it was that F250, and it was quite a workout, but we got it off. All right, so that's a thin coating. It looks like I've coated everything, but it's thin. I didn't gob it on. That's all you need. Now our brake rotor, I have cleaned the back of it off with brake clean already, and these are labeled front driver's side. Since we're here in the States, that means I'll put it on this left side. All right, there we go. So front driver's side, so it's can't mess them up. You can only put them on one way they go. All right, that'll hold our disc on just enough. Now you can reuse those little things that hold the disc on, but those things stink. I hate removing them. So we're not gonna. All right, so before we do too much more, I'm gonna take one of our caliper assemblies, and this should be this one, because it'll go like that. Easiest way to tell with these if you got the right side is, well, you know, it's gonna be this side out, but your bleeder should be on the top. So we got that. So what I wanna do is I'm gonna mount this whole assembly up. But before I do that, just from prior experience, remember I said I had problems with the bleeder screw. I'm going to take our bleeder screw, put a little bit of PB Blaster on it. A little bit, not the whole can. And we're just going to hand thread that in there. Make sure that, yeah, see, this is, I can tell you already it's going to be a tight fit. Like, come on, that should go in by hand. This is really how we're going to do this. All right, that's better. That's not too bad. All right, that's pretty good. But you can tell, like, these threads, it just wasn't perfect, and it's like it doesn't want to hand thread in. I know these should be relatively tight threads, but because they're fine, but you should still be able to get that sucker to go right in. All right, so there's our bleed screw is going in, so we're happy. Let's take it out so we don't break it off. But we're confident it'll go in when we have it on the car and we don't have to play with it on the bench. See, now look. Now that I've chased it a little bit, I can do it by hand. Remember, just a second ago, I couldn't do that. Look, now I can do it by hand. So PowerStop, you tell me, why do I have to, as the person who bought this from you with lots of money, have to chase your threads and risk getting stuff in there? All right, let's go ahead and get this thing ready to go on. All right, so like I said, we're gonna blue Loctite these. Set them off to the side. A little bit of blue Loctite. We cleaned up the old. Go ahead and take off our caliper, and we're just going to put the anchor on. So here on the anchor is where I've talked about where we've had to grind in the past just a little bit, and I suspect we're going to want to do that again here. So I'm going to go ahead and do that really fast. Take a file. I'm going to file away the coating here. And not a lot, just I found just a tiny bit is all that it really needs, especially in the corners. You just kind of knock it down in the corners a little bit so that the stainless steel clips will slide in there, and you'll be in pretty good shape. There, that ought to do it. So we'll go ahead and get this installed. Take our impact and just knock these down in. All right, and then we're going to take our torque wrench, set to 118 pound-feet. We're going to torque them. And we're going to hope we don't have to take that off. There we go. All right, so we'll slide these little things on. Hopefully our work there has made these slide on easy. Oh, come on, get on there. There you go. So you kind of drive these in like that. There, pop right in. Easy. And we will put a little bit of grease where the pistons connect, but I like to put that just on the pistons themselves. We'll slide back here. And get back there and put those in, all greasy and with my camera hitting my face. There we go. That one's in. So these actually didn't look so bad. I probably didn't have to grind the little bit that I ground off, but like I said, on the ones I had before, that was really thick. Of course, before we do that, like I said, I like to grease where the pistons are going to contact our pads. This will help keep all that quiet, but also avoid us over greasing this. So spread the rest on there for good measure. Bleeder screw to the top. Got one bolt in. Second bolt. Second bolt's in. All right, now our caliper to anchor bolts are 32 pound-feet. So we'll go ahead and get those started by hand. Tighten them the rest of the way. Okay. Easy. All right, now our new caliper would have come with new copper washers, so we're going to set those there so we can lose them. Take our original bleeder bolt, take out the plug, We'll put one washer here. Okay, so one, and our other, and then it goes like that. Yeah, that looks right. Okay, and let's go ahead and just use my torque wrench to tighten this because it's the same bolt size. While I look, it's going to be 41 pound-feet, which is scary on the banjo bolt because it's a hollow bolt, and you're like, "Yo, aren't you gonna break?" All right, so that was 32. That's 40 and 41. So this is 41 pound-feet. What that's going to do is going to compress our copper, and it's going to seal our banjo bolt. And you will be scared the entire time. Until it does that, and then you're happy. Now get all the brake fluid off everything. All right, so we're looking pretty good. This one is now all done. We can clean the face of our rotor one more time. Like I said, aside from bleeding the brakes, this side's complete. All right, without too much more do's or doo-doos or whatever, we're going to go ahead and do this one. So much the same, we're going to go ahead and get our banjo bolt off first. So hopefully I'm not going to block too much view back here, but not a ton to see. All right, so our hose, the just kind of comes up and around. So just remember that. That'll be important later. There will be a test. All right. Hold our copper washer. Oops, wrong stopper. Okay, we'll go ahead and put our stopper on that one. Good deal. All right. Just like that. Okay. So now we go back to our bin of parts. We look for the one that's going to work for us. And go ahead and get this one mounted up. Just like that. Get in there. There you go. Get our threads started without ganking them. There we go. Nice and snug. There we go. All right, now if we did this right, this will go like that. You did it right. Good job. Stupendous. All right, now we'll just move this out of the way. Let's go ahead and get our caliper off. This needs some 10 millimeters in the back there. These are like 18 or 22 pound-feet. I don't remember. What do you think? If it's 18 pound-feet, yeah, this thing can power them right off. It's like nothing. Look at that. Look at that. Look at that goodness. Okay. Look at that. It's one caliper. You can usually just use a hammer like that. In case you're wondering, yes, the new ones are a complete pain in the arse to put on. All right, now if we're lucky, we're not lucky. First of all, look at how that's basically welded itself to the hub. I got more control with this hammer.
These Panther cars are getting older, and oftentimes the rear rotors are original, as they are in this case.
Woo!
I found it's pretty common for a large rust ridge to form inside the parking brake drum section of the rotor. You can try backing off the parking brake shoe adjuster, but that doesn't always work. Mix that in with heavy rust on the axle flange to the rotor itself, and well, even the BFH takes a while. I found on these that an air hammer is a faster route. Now yes, you can get them off with just a hammer, and as stated, backing off the shoe adjustment if needed, but expect that these will be tough.
There we go. All right. 18 and 37. All right, so got the pups out helping us. Right, Shark? Right, Gwen? You guys, watch out. Go lay down. Don't walk in the brake fluid. All right, you go lay down. Good girl. Now, remember I said I would only swap these out if they, well, I said I wouldn't swap them out unless they looked darn near perfect. They look darn near perfect. There is no need to swap those out. I'm not going to do it. But if you want to do them, you can see here you got a couple of springs. You've got your adjuster, and you've got all that stuff, and you've got your retainers and everything. But this looks great. This isn't rusted at all. The shoes aren't coming apart. I see no need to do work any extra. Why do extra work if you don't have to? These are in really good shape. The other side is also good. Now, I had to use the air hammer to get the rotors off, which was a pain, and that's why I didn't have the pups out. I figured the pups can come out when I don't have the giant noisemaker going, which they would certainly prefer. All right, so what we're going to do is, this is rear driver's side. We're going to go ahead and put on our rotor on this side. And we're going to clean this thing out inside the rotor hat and everything. And then we can go ahead and get this one mounted up. I forgot something, didn't I? Forgot my anti-seize, because you saw me hammering on that thing, trying to get her off. So let's go ahead and put our anti-seize on. Now I've cleaned up our hub and everything, so we'll just go ahead and put a little bit of anti-seize on here. It's probably someone's going to tell me I use way too much, and you're probably exactly right, but I've never had a problem. All right. All right, this one likes to sit a little tighter on the hub there, so we don't have so much of a problem. Now we're back to finding the right caliper. And I think it's going to be this one because our bleeder is on the top. So let's take a look, see. So it should be this one. You can see the bleeder is on the top. So you do get 2 new bolts, and you get these new, there's our copper washers. There's our bolts and these things. And if you're wondering, yes, these are a pain to put on. A lot of money that it is. Yep. That was much easier. So get these suckers on, put that out of the way. Okay, so we'll gotta get our brake pads in next. Go ahead and grease these up. Okay, and slide that in there like that, and don't touch that with your greasy fingers. Don't get this greasy brush on the other one. Put a little grease there. And we determined that this one right here is the one that we wanted. Look at him laying in the brake fluid. And just like that. So what you get to do here is you got to move these out of the way without popping the rubbers off like that, which they tend to like to do on these, but they pop on just as easily. And then you got to get those behind here so you can put your bolts in, all while not getting your pads messy. There we go. Actually, it wasn't too bad. And then you should be able to thread these in. All right, these are like 18. These are nothing. These are like so loose you think they're going to fall off. Now, in a continued story of intrigue and amazement, somehow this banjo bolt is the same size as the banjo bolt up there, which is 41 pound-feet, and this one's 37 pound-feet. So, yeah, you got me. All right, Shark, I hope I don't drip on you. You don't need brake fluid on your paws. Watch out, bud. Watch out. I'm sorry to do that, bud, but you gotta move. Because this thing is probably gonna drip. And I don't want it dripping on you. Actually, it ain't dripping at all. New copper gasket, new copper gasket. That one torques to 37 pound-feet. All right, look at that. There we go. All right, so we got our rear brakes back together here. Now, before we do anything else, we're going to have to go to the other side, and we'll do this again for each side. And well, there's no point in showing that to you because it's kind of boring. And if I do it by myself, I can turn the music on. The dogs enjoy that. They love jamming out. We have a dog party. We just chill and we get everything back together. So we'll go ahead and do new lines on the other side, new rotors, calipers, all that good stuff. Get everything cinched down, torqued down, and then we'll be back and do our final assembly and bleeding. So now we've got all of our brakes on. We've got both sides done. So we're going to do another bleed because we've replaced the hoses. We're going to go ahead and bleed everything through the hoses, and then we'll go ahead and pump the brakes a few times on the calipers and then bleed them one more time. And then I'm going to need someone to help me out here, and I'm going to have to go fetch somebody because we're going to have to do a bleed procedure using the forescan. And from what I recall, you have to have someone sitting in the car manning the computer, holding their foot on the brake at certain times, and then you run around and open the bleed screws and whatnot. So, but let's go ahead and pump this up, knowing that, well, we ain't got any pressure. All right, let's see what that gives us.
There's no need to show the power bleed procedure again. It's the same as the flush. We're pressurizing the power bleeder to 10 to 15 psi, and then starting at the rear right, which is the longest run, we'll open the bleed screw. Bleed until no air bubbles are present in the fluid that's flowing out. When there's no more air bubbles, go ahead and tighten up the bleed screw. Then move on to the rear left, the front right, and finally the front left. As you go, ensure the power bleeder has sufficient brake fluid in its reservoir, and also pump it back up from time to time to maintain pressure. And that will do the basic bleed. We'll do the ABS bleeding through the scan tool in a bit.
And we're going to take this off. We're done with this. Put our cap on. All right, so that pretty much wraps this up. We're gonna have to wait until we have someone to lend us a hand and doing the brake bleeding, so we'll get someone who can help us out. We're gonna do the final bleed using forescan and our laptop. Now the reason for that is if you've got ABS, which we do on this car, the ABS modules, especially with the master cylinder that we did, we could have introduced air into the ABS solenoids. So we need to do a specific process to clear those. A lot of people will say, oh, you just pump it and you get it until it works. But you know, you never know if you end up with air in there, and that could impact your ABS working or your overall brake feel. So there is a very specific thing. You can use a laptop with forescan, only costs a few bucks. You get an ELM32 adapter on USB, and you can do everything you need to do that. You can even buy some OBDs that do it as well, but I've got a laptop with forescan, being this is a Ford. That's what I like to use. So since I have forescan available, I'll use forescan, which to me is just the proper way to do it. So we'll do that when we have someone to help out, but otherwise we're pretty much wrapped up. We're gonna do a little cleanup in the meantime.
For doing the ABS bleed service procedure, we're gonna go ahead and show it using forescan. Now note that I didn't use a container, but I did open the bleeder while the helper followed the on-screen instructions, and then I'd close the bleeder just before that particular operation completed. Now, this process has worked for me, but it was kind of hard to read through the instructions, and it's possible there's others who do it differently. In fact, Ford service data may also not match what forescan's process is. And a different scan tool that you may have, well, that could have its own unique process. My point is you may want to research this a little further, and my way here in the video may not be the best or the way that you wish to do it.
Yep, it says follow service procedures, blah, blah, blah.
Left.
Left front?
Left front.
All right, it's open. So hit OK and do your pumping.
Okay. So is this okay? Hang on. Before you hit anything. Down.
Okay, let's pause briefly to recap the process. Now at the start of each operation, I open the bleeder as noted by ForeScan. Then the helper clicks OK, which starts the process for that particular wheel. During this time, you'll hear the ABS pump operated and the solenoid for that wheel will be cycled to ensure no air is in that circuit. Now here's where I like to add my own flavor. I like to close the bleeder just before that process stops. Then, before the helper clicks OK on the dialog box that you now see on this pause screen, I do a few manual bleeds to ensure no air entered the caliper. This is a normal operation here. Open the bleeder, ask the helper to push the brake down to the floor and hold, close the bleeder, and the helper then can let the brake pedal back up. Repeat this a few times, ensuring no air in the fluid. Okay, so back to our process with less interruptions, and well, hopefully this clarified things a bit.
Down. All right, up. Up. Do it down slow.
Again?
Yeah. Okay, and then up.
Up.
All right, hit okay?
Okay.
Right front.
Yep.
Okay, it's open. All right, I've closed it. Down.
Down.
Up.
Up.
Do one more. Down.
Down.
Up.
Up.
It's a nice stream.
Right rear.
All right. Okay, it's open.
Okay.
Okay. Down.
Down.
Up.
Up.
Down.
Down.
Up.
Up.
Down.
Down.
That's pretty good. Up.
Up.
I'm going to check that level really quick. I'll have to top it off with my other jug. All right, this one is open and ready.
Okay, I'll hit okay.
Yep. Okay. All right, do me a favor. Down.
Down.
Up.
Up.
Down.
Down.
Up. Okay. How's the pedal feel? Oh, hit okay. Yeah, I'm sorry.
Now that the brake bleeding is done, we put the wheels back on, torque the lug nuts, and immediately head out for the break-in procedure. For these brakes, it's as follows. 5 moderate to aggressive stops from 40 to 10, followed by 5 moderate stops from 35 to 5 in rapid succession. Then drive 5 minutes, trying to not let the pad sit on the rotors at a stop as a cool-off. Let's go ahead and do this break-in.
Ready? 1. 2. 3. 5.
1, 2, 5. 3, sir. 3.
4. 5.
All right.
Okay, and what's the next one?
5 moderate from 35 to 5. Without letting the brakes get cool.
1.
People expect to smell so aggressive.
2. 3. 4. 5.
After this is complete, continue.
Now's the hard part where you can't hit the, you can't stand on the brake or it'll leave an imprint. So at a stop sign, you got to put it in neutral and coast.
I mean, that's what they say at 1, but sure.
Well, they're much better now, by the way.
Oh, good.
I always forget that these, like, they really do have to go through a heat cycle. All right, just a little bit of an epilogue. We got the brakes all finished up. As you saw, we were bedding them in. Everything went great. The cool down period went well. And, well, they feel great. The pedal is nice and firm. And everything's looking good. And as you can see, that new master cylinder helps freshen up the engine bay a little bit as well. No more grungy reservoir, no more grungy fluid. All right, so that wraps up this job as well as this video, doing a complete brake system job on this 2003 Mercury Marauder. Now, if you liked this video, do us a big favor, leave a comment, drop a like, and subscribe, as there will be plenty more on Vortex Garage.